Salt New York bronzer versus other cream bronzer. I'm gonna need you to be a little more specific. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of I Can't Be Bothered to Get Out of My Bathrobe.
I'd go myself, but I can't be.
It's a lifestyle, okay, / coping mechanism. I had a hankering today. I wanted to do another this or that. This or that is my series that I very cleverly titled, basically to demystify the nuanced differences between two products, maybe more than two products in some cases, that you might be agonizing over. By the way, I want to put these on because I need to be able to read my phone without getting a headache, but also they have tiny gremlin prints all over them because my child is obsessed with my glasses. But yeah, I had you guys submit to me on my Instagram stories. If you're not following me on Instagram, it is at Hey Kackie, and that is where you guys can see, oh boy, the least edited version of me on the internet and also influence my videos, as this one is. You guys were very helpful, and I have lots and lots of products collected from my stash over here to swatch and compare for you guys, and in some cases really give you like a very straight answer as to which one I would prefer. So that's how this or that works. Make sure that you're following me on Instagram if you want to influence the next one of this video, and let's go ahead and get to answering your questions. Wow. They're still coming in, so I might have to make another trip to my stash at some point in the video. I will say some of these are going to be repeats if you watched the last one, but thankfully, happily, there are new people here all the time, and I am not going to be like, that was in the last video, go watch the last one. You know what I mean? I'm not going to alienate people for being new. So if there are repeats, hopefully this is just as helpful, but I also cannot be bothered to go back and check which ones I already did. Kosas concealer or Thrive for winter time. I like the specificity of that. So these are two of my favorite concealers. The Thrive is going to be less coverage but more hydrating. The Kosas is going to be slightly more mattifying and more coverage and not quite as hydrating. So it really depends on your under eye situation. But since you said for winter time, I'm guessing that that is an issue that you experience as far as under eye dryness. So I would definitely go with the Thrive. If you are having trouble getting more coverage out of it, I would just recommend using like a really hydrating under eye primer / color corrector like the Becca, Smashbox by Becca, Becca by Smashbox, what have you, or the Beauty Pie one, something with, you know, a nice emollient oil in it, and that will do the double duty of canceling out a little bit of the under eye discoloration as well as adding a little bit of coverage so you're not just like only relying on your concealer for the coverage. So here you can see I blended them out and started to let them dry down. So here's the Kosas, and it's not, you know, completely matte at all. It almost just has like a milkier finish to it, but it is going to, I feel like if you're super prone to under eye dryness, it will accentuate a little bit of under eye dryness, but it is blurring. If what you really need is hydration, I would definitely go with the Thrive. Next, Pat McGrath blush or Aether blush. This is one that really speaks for itself. All I have to do is swatch them. Now, mind you, I don't have every shade of the Pat McGrath ones. I bought the ones that I think are probably fairer, but all of the swatches that I have seen seem to reflect the same sheer buildability. But I'm gonna get a pretty intense swatch here of Flirtatious and a pretty intense swatch here of the Rose Quartz, which is the fairest of the trios that Aether has in the blushes. So outside of the shade difference, the Pat McGrath is going to have a more finely milled kind of blurring finish on the skin, and the Aether, it has a little bit of mineral reflection, but it's much more pigmented. I would compare the Aether a lot more closely to the blushes that are in the Patrick Ta blush duos. They're pretty intensely pigmented. The Aether ones are not what I would call watercolor blushes, whereas the Pat McGrath I definitely would. Very sheer. Pat McGrath is more similar to the Patrick Ta singles, the monochrome moment blushes, the velvet blushes. But if I had to pick one, I would probably go with the Pat McGrath just because I do prefer the flexibility of that formula and the buildability, and it's just kind of, I kind of black out. It's very intoxicating to put that blush on. Let's clean the gremlin prints off of my glasses here. I've got a serious case of dry mouth. Ugh. Like force myself to eat breakfast, force myself to drink coffee. and then force myself to drink water all day. Super Goop CC or Tower 28 Sunny Days. Both of these come in a pretty good shade range. I think Tower 28 did go a little bit further in terms of like depth and also complexity of the shades. I really, really enjoy this. I like it very much. I'll go ahead and swatch these, but I think that more than like the color or the consistency, it's about like how they behave right when you put them on. I have Melrose in the Tower 28, which is a little bit dark, but like it seems to work for me because it's so low coverage. And then I have 105N in the CC cream. So quite different. Similar undertones, but still quite different. And the main thing is the Tower 28 has just this beautiful, like uncomplaining creaminess on the skin. The Supergoop CC, this is the newer formula. Hey guys, bear with me through the next couple of products because my camera apparently detects my eyes, and so it starts getting really confused as soon as I put my glasses on. I do eventually figure out that it's happening and I take my glasses off, but until I do, it's gonna just kind of keep racking focus, so I apologize. It's annoying. The old one I liked, but it only came in 4 shades and it was very different shade to shade. So I could use the first 2 shades out of the 4 if that tells you how poor the shade range was. And with each step towards depth, it got higher in coverage because of the mineral pigment. And I really don't know what they did to kind of solve for that. But this is the struggle that I have with the CC cream from Supergoop, is that like it goes on kind of normally, but then when you try and blend it, it like goes really funky and slippy. It like kind of gets this water finish right on the top of it. And it's like you can't spread it around anymore. Some people might even call it like curdling. It then recovers. Like it really comes around and figures itself out eventually, and it's just a funky kind of behavior on the skin right at first, that's all. I would go with the Tower 28 just because I think it's like an easier product to use. Not that the CC cream's bad, it's just like, it's kind of funky and I don't use it because it does kind of weird me out how hard it is to spread on my face initially, you know? And it makes it hard for me to kind of recommend because I do base my recommendations on whether or not something is like easy and fun to use, and that formula is just kind of confusing to use. Powder blush, Patrick Ta or Pat McGrath. We just kind of touched on this, but I will compare for the sake of what I was trying to explain a second ago. The differences between the single pan, this is, like I said, the Monochrome Moment Velvet Blush, versus the ones that are in the duo pans. So this is She's Adorable versus, I think, Do We Know Her? And holy crap, guys. The duos are so much more highly pigmented than the velvet blushes. And so I would say that the velvet blushes are more comparable in formula to the Pat McGrath, but I would pick the Pat McGrath over the Patrick Ta because I do feel like A, they kind of split the difference, and B, they're less prone to freaking hard panning. Okay, that is the one complaint that I have about the Patrick Ta Monochrome Moment blushes, is that they just have a tendency to want to grab the moisture off your brush and they don't kick up enough. They're a little bit like they're pressed too hard basically. And like the particles I think are a little bit too big, and or maybe the blush itself is like trying to be a little bit too emollient. And so when you have any moisture on your brush, this blush just soaks it up. She's Seductive has done the same thing to me. I'm constantly wiping them off and it's just kind of a frustrating thing to have to deal with. It makes it less fun to use. It makes me reach for it less often. And I've just never had that problem with the Pat McGrath. So that is what I would go with. Nest Holiday versus Birchwood Pine. Birchwood Pine all the way, I know, because I ordered the massive one of the holiday candle last year and I got sick of it. And I'm still not sick of Birchwood Pine, and I have 2 massive ones, and last year I burned through 2 of the medium-sized ones and that still wasn't enough for me. So always Birchwood Pine for me. All right, next, someone has asked me to decide between 2 of my favorite children, the Salt New York highlighter versus the Phytosurgence highlighter. So I've got Salt New York here in beige, which is my preferred one, and this is the Divine Daylight Spectral Shine from Phytosurgence. Now first let's discuss the differences. Phytosurgence right here is going to be, God, that's so hard to see. I'm so sorry, I really tried. The Phytosurgence is more of a texture. It really is, and I would have said that about the Salt New York had I not swatched them next to each other, but it is almost no real glitter to speak of. It's more just a cream. And the way that that cream works, it's like kind of a stubborn thing. You almost have to like break the surface of it at first, but it does not have any detectable shimmer to it. Whereas the Salt New York does have like a tiny micro shimmer to it, but I think that that's what makes it more effective for me, is that it kind of breaks up the light a little bit instead of adding another layer of something creamy. Now, I have seen Jason in his lives apply this just on top of like sunscreen, and it looks unbelievable. You know what I mean? It's like this ultimate natural catch the light kind of texture on the skin. And if that's what you're going for, it definitely has a very unique appeal in that respect. But when I try and apply this on top of powder products or something, it tends to kind of gum up a powder situation because it is a little bit tougher, like more stubborn of a formula. So I don't know why my camera doesn't want to focus on my face today. Do I not? Oh, it's because I'm wearing my glasses. Yeah, it's trying to focus on my eyes and I'm wearing my glasses. Okay, that was why. Next, the M Cosmetics So Soft Blushes versus the Makeup by Mario. This is not the blush. Oh, here's one. Being super disorganized has its perks. Okay, so I have here Lychee from M Cosmetics and Makeup by Mario in Dusty Rose. They are both very creamy, very soft, a little bit on the dewy side. Makeup by Mario is dewier, and the M Cosmetics is a little bit softer, a little bit more silicone-y. This one feels a little bit more waxy. And if I have to pick one, it's really no contest. I'm always going to go for the M Cosmetics for two very big reasons. One, look at the blur. Look at how it blurs out on the skin. It is just the most flattering skin texture. It's subtle, but to me it makes a difference. It's just a prettier texture on the skin to me. It's more of a hybrid texture. And the other thing is her shades. They're just more nuanced. There was something a little disappointing about the Makeup by Mario shades, unless you're gonna just mix them and like that's your favorite thing to do is like layer all of your blushes. You know, they're very primary, and something that I have heard from friends in the biz is that to a large degree, especially if you have an exclusive partnership to sell at Sephora, a lot of times these retailers will dictate what shades are going to sell, and they basically tell you what colors you have to make. And so M Cosmetics is outside of that sphere of another retailer dictating what shades they're allowed to make or what formulas they're allowed to make. And like Makeup by Mario being only sold on his website and then only sold on Sephora, he made very basic, a berry, rose, a peach. And I'm not saying that they're bad. They are a phenomenal value for your money, and they are really soft and easy to use. But if I were to pick my favorite, it would be absolutely the M Cosmetics all day long. Oh, not at all what you asked for, but I need a replacement for bubble wrap. They discontinued it. Huh, I'll have to go on the hunt for that. Bubble wrap was the under eye plumper from Glossier. I always have to give the disclaimer. People are like, why in the world would I need under eye plumping? Some of us have the problem that our under eyes are puffy, and some of us have the issue that our under eyes are sallow and sunken in. I was the sallow sunken in of that variety, and it was a pretty great product, to be honest. That's interesting that they discontinued it. I have super oily, crease-prone eyelids. Thrive Shadow Sticks or Glossier Lid Star. I have some good news for you. Even though I will go ahead and swatch them for you here so you can see the differences between them. If you have oily eyelids, chances are neither of these is going to crease on you. They are some of the most high fidelity formulas. I would compare the Thrive to the Laura Mercier Caviar Sticks or the Beauty Pie ones. When I have one of them right here. What do they call them? It is, they don't have the name of the actual product on here, but it's their like shadow stick. So all of these have some kind of technology in them that either is super silicone-y and flexible in the case of the shadow sticks, or it completely dries down in the case of the lid stars. The thing about the lid stars is they're hard to control and they don't have a whole lot of color impact. So if what you're looking for is just a very soft wash of color, but you're not really looking to like build a controlled illusion of any kind, you're just kind of looking for a one and done, it's absolutely gorgeous, and it will not budge. It will not budge for anything. Like, nothing. It's not going anywhere. And I have heard from a couple of people that they have oily enough eyelids that their eyelids did manage to crease the Thrive Brilliant Eye Brighteners. So I would maybe go for the Lid Star, but hold out for the Lisa Eldridge eyeshadows. They are on their way to me right now. I ordered all of them. So those I think are going to have really, really high fidelity as well. But if you're looking for something that will not absolutely ever budge on you, the Lid Stars all day long. Dior Face and Body versus the new Lisa Eldridge foundation. I could absolutely see how they could look very similar online because of the claims, but I have great news for you, and that is that they are pretty darn different, and it should help you to make a decision. All right, first and foremost, the Dior smells. It's got a very strong fragrance to it. So the Dior is going to have less coverage, and also it doesn't really stay as dewy, bouncy, kind of beautifully glycerin-y on the skin as I remember it. Maybe it's because my skin has aged since the last time I used it and it just has gotten drier. But as it dries down, it kind of doesn't tolerate powder and everything else the way that I would hope that it would. Like, it still starts to get dry on me and starts to kind of particulate. It looks really nice on the back of my hand. It's very blurring, but it's almost like it's got too much silicone in it. And that's why I still prefer the Lisa Eldridge, just because ooh, the flexibility of coverage, and then also just this beautiful finish on the skin. It is blurring. All of her stuff has a really beautiful blur to it, but it's just a higher tech formula, and the way that it looks on the skin, it's kind of interesting, even when I sheer it the heck out, okay? And of course, these are two different shades. You're gonna be able to see my veins through the fairer one a little bit more, but look at that. You just get more of a rich pigment from her foundation shades, whereas this is kind of one-dimensional. You know what I mean? It's like one color, and then, you know, you kind of have to work with color cancellation and things like that if you want to get more believable coverage out of it, whereas the Lisa Eldridge is just kind of a one and done on the skin. Feels like it really does a lot more than I expect a foundation to do. You put it on and you're like, yep, that's better than I expected it to be. Whereas the Dior is just kind of, it's fine. But I mean, if you told me that that was a drugstore foundation, I'd be like, okay. I believe you, except for the really, really strong fragrance. Wow, that's a wild question. Huh, two things I didn't even consider being similar. Hang on. Now, you say Aether Dry Oil. I think that you mean the Desert Moon Illuminating Oil, but I'm not totally sure. If these are not what you meant to compare, I do apologize. But they said the Aether Dry Oil or the Auric Glow Lust. And if you have not touched either of these products, man, what a really great thing to go ahead and swatch for you to show you what we're working with, because the Auric Glow Lust is thick. Thick. It is a blurring, pearlescent, technological kind of product. It's very much a complexion product, whereas the Aether is just most beautiful oil I've ever seen, but I mean, it's still just an oil. Do you see? We get like almost coverage out of the Auric. Granted, that's more than you would probably put on a square inch of your face, but I'm just kind of swatching it for you to show you the shade. And then this right here, that is that gorgeous, like, wearable iridescence that, like, you'd kind of put on a no makeup face to just be like, whoa, they look incredible. You know, like, you leave the house and people are like, they don't think you're necessarily wearing makeup, but the light hits you in like this unbelievably gorgeous way. Not to say that you couldn't achieve that with the Auric, but like, you would want to use so little. And I do feel like the Auric is just a touch more temperamental because it does have so much more presence on the skin. So if I sheer it out, about as sheer as you would actually put it on your skin, look at that. That's the Auric, and it's like this beautiful, blurred, gorgeous texture. I find it to be a little bit too present on my skin to wear just as a foundation. It's just a little, it stays a little too molten for my taste. I wish it had a touch more dry down, but like, I'm not kidding, guys. The Aether is just an oil. That's all it is. There's not really technology there other than it just being a beautiful hydrating oil for your skin, but there's no start to finish. There's no, it's one consistency when I get it out of the bottle and then I put it on my skin and it does something kind of like high tech. It's just a beautiful oil. That's all that it is. And it's a beautiful, healthy oil that is absolutely gorgeous on the skin, but it's not a complexion product. And I'm just gonna rub that in. That's just, it's lovely. Just, honestly, just do both. Then you get blur and a little bit of iridescence. Oh yeah. I like that. Oh my God, best answer. None, because I'm a monster who buys everything you recommend. SOS emoji. I love you, and I understand. I understand that feeling, that SOS feeling. You're just like, yep, and this is how I salve my wounds. I just bury myself in pretty things. All right, so I'm just gonna go and answer this one because I can't swatch it, but the LYS foundation or the Lisa Eldridge foundation. I actually decluttered the LYS foundation. It did not work for me. I didn't like it. It was just inconsistent in pigment and a little bit dry on my skin. It just looked flat. And that was entirely personal, but I don't have it to show you. And I kind of think that regardless, the fact that the Lisa Eldridge has kind of risen to the top of my favorite things ever, I'm gonna pick that one. Okay, Ilia SPF tint or Tower 28 SPF skin tint. So if you're looking to save a buck, I would definitely go with the Tower 28 because it's phenomenal and it's $30 for an ounce, and this is, I want to say $46 for an ounce. Yeah, again, Melrose is a little bit dark for me, but I kind of think it works regardless. So here's Melrose, and then this is Tulum from Ilia. They're pretty similar. This one's a little more present on the skin. It's just heavier, I feel like, and not like in a bad way necessarily. It's just more emollient. And this one is a lot like the Tower 28 is a lot milkier. The Tower 28, a lot of people kind of had criticism about the fact that it's not really a sunscreen. They call it a tinted SPF, but it's not really, it's much more of a foundation than an SPF, even though it is a skin tint, like skin tint in terms of coverage level, but its behavior on the skin has a little bit more technology to it, I feel like, than the Ilia does. The Ilia is a serum. The way they call it a super serum skin tint, it is more of an SPF serum than it is a skin tint, whereas the Tower 28 is more of a skin tint than it is an SPF, if that makes any sense at all. But this is just, it's got a little bit, like you could blend this out to being almost clear if you wanted to. It does have a lot of flexibility on the skin and it's absolutely gorgeous. It really, really is. It is like one of the best summertime skin tint foundation products that I've ever tried. But you don't need to spend $16 more for a very similar effect. I don't think this, I don't know, this might have silicones in it and this doesn't have silicones in it. That would be one call out, I think. Don't quote me on that though. I'm really not totally sure if this has silicones in it or not, but I reach for this one more often just because it's lighter weight. They're both really pretty. That's a hard one. That's a really hard one. Yeah. The Tower 28's more blurring. That's that one. And then here's this is the Ilia. And I mean, I think you get that from silicones, you know? One and Done Shadow, Thrive Brilliant Eye Brightener, or Victoria Beckham Lid Luster. Another one where swatching will just illuminate so many things. Here we have the Victoria Beckham in Honey, and then this is the Brilliant Eye Brightener in Emma, and the Victoria Beckham is Sparkly. There are a couple of the Brilliant Eye Brighteners that have a little bit of sparkle to them. I think it's mainly the silver one, but they're mostly kind of like a caviar stick. They just add a nice reflection, an iridescence, whereas the Victoria Beckham is like a full glitzy sparkle. And this is them blended out. Let me show you what happens when you like build up the Victoria Beckham. Like you get this very multi-dimensional, fully saturated, reflective surface. Look at that. And as you look closer, like the foil has so much dimension. And then the Brilliant Eye Brighteners, I feel like just kind of more intense as you build them, but they don't really have a different texture as you build them. They're more consistent in texture. Do you see that? This one foils more, but it also has glitter. And then this one doesn't really have any glitter. And I feel like that's helpful because it probably will accentuate texture less. But I feel like they serve different purposes. In fact, Sometimes the complaints that I hear about some of the shades of the Brilliant Eye Brighteners is actually that when you blend them out, they don't have as much punch as you expected them to, and it's kind of hard to get them to build to full saturation. Some of the kind of taupey shades are like that. Whereas the Victoria Beckham, you almost have trouble blending them out to sheer because they are just so beautifully present and such an instant one and done. So yeah, it's really more about kind of your preference there, but just understand this is like glitzy, and the Brilliant Eye Brighteners are like, they just look like a really pretty wash of color that has a little bit of reflection to it. Rowan Liquid Lip Balm or Fit Glow Lip Color Serum. I think we talked about this the last time, but what I really need to do is just do an entire video that's just like best and worst liquid lip balms. I went ahead and pulled all of these because it was another question that I got as well. Wanted me to compare the Bare Minerals liquid lip balm as well as the Beauty Pie lip oil. So I'm just gonna go ahead and knock them all out at once here. I love when something has like a satisfying closure to it. Some of them just screw on. The one from Beauty Pie clicks. It's the little things, guys. Here's the Beauty Pie Nude Nectar. It is such a sheer formula, but it is a true liquid lip balm. That slippy, non-sticky, beautiful, comfortable, nourishing formula. It's so awesome. Fit Glow is kind of the original of that, and I feel like it really gets the job done too and has the most shades. The other thing I don't really like about Fit Glow is like, it's just the packaging doesn't really please me one way or the other. Like, I don't get excited about interacting with this. It's kind of, yeah, you know, but other than that, beautiful, beautiful formula and has the most shades out of all of them. Rowan is the first liquid lip balm formula that I ever tried, and so it's near and dear to my heart, but it doesn't have quite as much shine as the other ones. It is just like altogether a little bit more diffused of a texture, and if you are looking for that slippy lip balm, liquid lip balm texture, the Bare Minerals liquid lip balm ain't it. It is a lip gloss, okay? It is a sticky lip gloss that is beautiful. Do not get me wrong. It is very like nourishing and very pretty on the skin. That's, like I said, ingenuity, but it doesn't, it definitely has like a, your hair is gonna stick to it, your lips are gonna stick to each other. It's very much a lip gloss. Whereas their Gen Nude was the stickiest thing I've ever used in my life. So this is like a gigantic leap forward in terms of their lip gloss formulas, but it's still not a liquid lip balm. And I wanna include this too. I mean, it doesn't really matter like swatching the shades next to each other because this is such a different color, but the Westman Atelier Squeaky Clean liquid lip balm also is not that ultra slippy formula that you get with Rowan or Fit Glow or anything like that. So this one happens to be my favorite in terms of the color. This is Nana, and it's like, it's the best. Oh God, it's the best. I find myself reaching for this one the most just because of the color. It is like big avalanche day on my desk today. But anyway, that's the one I reach for the most because of the color, but I just, you know, I don't have all the colors of the Fit Glow. I think that I probably would prefer the Fit Glow above all of them formula-wise, just if I had my druthers on which shade, you know? It's just I don't have like my favorite shade isn't in the Fit Glow formula that I own, you know? Rowan only has 6 shades. And they're beautiful, but like that might not really, you know, turn your crank. Fit Glow is going to have more shades, but if I had to choose, it would be the Westman Atelier. Chaos or sanity? I choose balance. I'm trying anyway. Me driving to get my child to daycare, listening to a meditation, that's my balance of chaos and sanity. Lisa Eldridge or Daniel Sandler blush. Another 2 formulas that are worth swatching next to each other to gain a better understanding. Yes, that's the shade Mango from Daniel Sandler. It just happened to be the one that I grabbed. And it's a bit more of a mixer shade. Most people wouldn't wear that alone. I'm not gonna say all, but most people wouldn't wear that alone. But this is Pink Soap from Lisa Eldridge next to it. The best first call out that I can make here is this feels like a gel serum. This feels super silicone-y. It's got like a liquid powder finish to it, and I feel like it causes it to kind of feather at the edges really easily, but it is gonna dry down to more of a powder finish regardless of what you put it on top of. Whereas the Daniel Sandler, it is a beautiful formula to manipulate on the skin. It's going to take on whatever texture you put it on top of. I really do like the Lisa Eldridge, and it's very blurring just like everything else. So it's like it's gonna be more blurring than the Daniel Sandler. And the Daniel Sandler is going to be a little bit more like juiced up looking on its own. If I had to pick one though, I'd probably still go for the Daniel Sandler just because I feel like it's easier to work with. I had no problem working with the Lisa Eldridge, but a lot of people have messaged me being like, I found it really temperamental and weird because of kind of the really, really high silicone content in it. But I mean, I wouldn't kick either one of them out of bed, right? Patrick Ta contour versus Westman Atelier contour versus Salt New York contour, this or that or that. I do think that I compared these two in the last video, or like two of those in the last video, but I will go ahead and put all three of them next to each other. Wow. When they're all up next to each other, blended out like that, they kind of all do look the same. But this right here is Salt New York, and Salt New York is gonna be right there in the middle of neutral. It's got a nice kind of like translucence to it, so it works on a lot of skin tones. And it has just enough gray in it, I feel like, without kind of going too cool. Biscuit from Westman Atelier, which there is more than one shade. I just have Biscuit. It's a little rosier, and I can actually get away with using it as a bronzer. As it blends out, it does kind of embrace the yellow in my skin a little bit, and it works almost as well as a bronzer as it does as a believable contour. And the Patrick Ta is probably the grayest out of all of them, but I do find that it's extremely effective. So that's really hard. The Salt New York only comes in the one contour shade, whereas Patrick Ta comes in several, and you get a bronzer. And the Westman Atelier, even though it's more expensive, I feel like I can use it as both, as a bronzer and a contour. Might as well put Nutcracker next to it just to show you guys, since I talked about it in the last video. So this is Nutcracker from Danessa Myricks, and that's only 20 bucks. Not that the other ones are expensive, just only the Westman Atelier one's expensive. I don't have a favorite out of those. I'm sorry. I pick E, all of the above, but hopefully seeing them next to each other would help you make a decision one way or the other. Oh, that's what someone wanted me to compare, was the Kosas lip oil to the Bare Minerals. Let's do that real quick. I've got the Kosas lip oil in Unhooked. I wanted to grab one of the like new Undressed collection. These things are so pretty. I'm gonna put the Westman Atelier next to that just for giggles. So like I said, Bare Minerals is not a liquid lip balm, but neither really is the Kosas. The Kosas is like a lip oil. But it's not oily. It still like has a lip gloss vibe to it, but it's so lightweight. But it doesn't really have any like plumping promises or anything like that, and they both smell pretty fruity. So they're pretty similar, just the Bare Minerals is a lot heavier. It like feels much more like a lip gloss. So that's the Kosas, that's the Bare Minerals, and that's the Westman Atelier, just because I wanted to put it there. The Bare Minerals has sparkles. There's a little bit of sparkles to it. And I think that there are sparkles in some of the other Kosas formulas. I think that Dip has sparkle in it, but this one doesn't happen to. You really can't go wrong, but I would recommend the Kosas. The Kosas is just more nourishing, and it's a little less annoying to wear. It's like more fun to wear, you know? Bite Pressed Powder versus Kosas Cloud Set. Ooh boy, I have used both of these like crazy though. I tried to swatch them, it didn't make any sense. The Cloud Set is going to be more blurring and more brightening, and this is going to be still really, really beautiful. And it is less prone to hard panning, and it doesn't have any effect on like the iridescence of your skin or anything like that. It is like very uncomplaining. Put it on your skin, all it's going to do is just kind of set your makeup, very vaguely mattify it, you know, change the way that the light hits it, but it's not going to do anything kind of reflective. So it's probably gonna be better for like photography and things like that. And then this is gonna have that really beautiful in-person, slightly mineral reflective quality like you might get from like the Pat McGrath under eye or the Well People bio-based baked brightener, but I don't know what has happened since they reformulated it. I need to try the new formula before I recommend that. So anyway, I would pick this one just because I think it looks better in person. And I think that's where I'm gonna close it out today, guys. That was quite a lot of swatching. My hand is a little bit raw now. But I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of This or That. I will definitely be making more of these in the future, but go follow me on Instagram. Keep an eye on my stories for these kinds of prompts, and also for just total unadulterated memeing chaos most of the time. That's pretty much what my stories are, like all the time. So anyway, guys, I hope to see you over there. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, Give it a thumbs up. If you want to keep hanging out with me on this channel, hit the button down below and subscribe. I would love it if you guys did. Thank you so much for watching and for hanging out with me today. I love you guys so freaking much, and I will see you in the next one.